Right now, we're going to talk about the Extinction Rebellion protests ongoing, day 5 of 2 weeks of those protests in London. Large parts of Westminster, basically now tent city. Westminster Bridge, Lambeth Bridge having been closed off for some days. City Airport now the subject of some attention, with protesters not just in planes, stopping them leaving by refusing to sit down while they videoed themselves and apologising to passengers for causing disruption as they themselves choose to cause disruption. And indeed, a former paraplegic sportsman clinging to the top of an aeroplane yesterday, stopping it from taking off. I'm not quite sure how the police allowed that to happen, but we were going to be talking to Michaela Loach, who's a climate change activist from Extinction Rebellion Scotland. Unfortunately, she didn't realise it was going to be me interviewing her, and because apparently I don't share her views on how we tackle the issue of climate change, she didn't want to be interviewed by me. I don't know if the rule is different to different parts of the country, Michaela, but I think as a general rule, we're able to have conversations with people on the British media where we don't necessarily always agree. And if you can't stand up for your own arguments when asked simple questions in a radio studio, then I'm not really sure you should put yourself up forward as a spokesperson for your group. But we have managed to find someone who's got rather more gumption about him. We've spoken to him before, Zack Polanski, who's an Extinction Rebellion member, and he has joined us now. Good morning to you, Zack.
Julia, ever a delight to speak to you in the morning.
There we are, you see. I've never understood. It's the same with Remain and Brexit as well. I've never understood why people feel it difficult to talk to other people who have different views. But what do you make of people who say they don't want to go on shows with people who they... Well, apparently she called me a climate denier. I've never really understood what climate denier means, as just someone who just wants to discuss the science and wants to discuss what the options are about how we tackle issues around our climate. But should we be not talking to people who disagree with us?
I think we need to talk to everyone, and I think we always need to have conversations. I think it's only fair to recognise that when you're on the media and you have a platform, you do, Julia, you're more powerful in terms of influence than a lot of your individual activists. So while I encourage and thank you for this platform to be able to speak to things, because I think if you're going to be spouting stuff for 3 hours every day or however long your show is...
I love that you're speaking and I'm spouting. That's an interesting difference.
Well, you do spout a little bit, don't you, Julia? Sometimes you come up with, outrageous statements that will get ratings,
like
will go viral on YouTube.
No, I know. I hate to tell you, I only give my actual views, and just because you disagree with them doesn't mean they're spouting. But let's talk about these protests, because there's been a new poll that suggests that actually more than half of people...
You spout beautifully, by the way. It's not a criticism. Sorry,
very good at it. Genuinely, I think the idea that when people are giving views that aren't the same as someone else's, it could just be people giving views that aren't the same as yours. It's all it could be. But do
you not think there's a line where you look at it and you're feeding the machine? You're kind of saying, well, actually, now I'm complicit.
Complicit with what?
Well, then I'm giving you content, aren't I? So I have to consider when I come on, is this something that I want to support? Is it something I want to be complicit in? When I weigh up those two things, I think actually, yes, it's better to be able to have a platform. With giving you a forum and a bigger platform to be able to kind of...
I've got my own national radio show. I don't need a bigger forum.
Well, this is the thing. I thought you were a little bit shaky on Question Time last night, and I respect the fact that it's very difficult to go on national TV when you're used to your own radio show because suddenly someone else is hosting it. But I noticed that you weren't quite as confident and quite as cutting as you usually are on your show, and I just thought that's interesting when you have to share a platform.
I think it's very different presenting a show to being a guest on a show and a panel of 5 people. So obviously you're sharing the time in a rather different way than a one-on-one conversation. But also, I don't think many people, given some of the responses I've had on Twitter overnight, would share your view on that. But look, let's talk about some actual...
We know Twitter's an echo chamber, isn't it?
Zack,
so the people who support you...
Zack, how about we actually talk about some substance rather than just what you think of me? I'm not sure even my own listeners care that much what anyone thinks of me or even what they think of me, but there we are. I don't think my husband cares that much either. But let's talk about the Extinction Rebellion tactics, because one of the conversations that did come up on Question Time was about the choice of tactics. A lot of people who may be very sympathetic to your cause may not actually like the tactics of putting a lot of people to disruption, stopping people from going about their daily business, driving their cars, getting their bus, walking where they want to walk, and indeed getting aeroplanes from City Airport. Some 53%, I think, in the survey YouGov carried out said that they didn't actually approve of the tactics that Extinction Rebellion were doing and thought that actually you were putting people off. Do you think that's a risk?
Yes, I think it's a massive risk. I think whenever you take any civil disobedience, you have to think very seriously and weigh up the calculation between how important is the cause, how important is the media attention that's going to be caused by this cause, and how much can we impact that media attention to make sure that's actionable change. This can't just be about getting attention, because then it's attention seeking in the worst possible way. It has to be attention seeking, making sure that we're getting actionable plans from it. I think that it probably is putting some people off, but then I think that's why it's important I come on shows like Talk Radio, where your listeners on average might not entirely agree with our tactics, and make sure that I'm presenting a reasonable case. So if I'm presenting a reasonable case, we are facing an existential crisis, and if we have to inconvenience some people to do that, including ourselves, that is something we have to apologise for, and that's something, though, also we have to do, and keep saying we are doing this because we want the government to make our three demands.
Well, you see, again, and it demands, not aims. And again, this is the bit I'm worried about, is that, and again, I was very forced about this on Question Time, I don't like the fact that this is an organisation that's not been elected by anybody, not stood at the ballot box and got representation from the people to make demands of the government. I don't think that's something that we do in a democracy, and certainly not by force. And yes, although not violent protests, these are not legal protests. They are actually causing inconvenience. They are against the law. We've seen 1,000+ people being arrested because these protests aren't legal and are causing problems for people. But you could if this is such an important issue and people really care about it, and your arguments are so persuasive and the facts are on your side, you would be able to persuade people at the ballot box. And the reality is that you're not. I mean, even in the European elections with the Green Party, who are not even remotely as extreme as Extinction Rebellion, and you are an extremist organisation, only 11.8% votes. Now, a heck of a lot more than they got at the last general election, and all play to them. But this is a minority interest. This is as minority support, as much as people pay lip service. If people actually knew what would be required to achieve what Extinction Rebellion wanted to do, you'd have barely anyone signing up to it.
Well, an Ipsos poll just showed us that 53% of people thought climate change was the most important issue. That's gone up to 79%. Sorry, not the most important issue, but an important issue. That's gone up to 79%.
That's a very crucial difference, isn't it?
It is, and I think that's a fair distinction. So we've got some more work to do there. But it's clearly, I think even you would argue, that's moving in the right direction if you care about climate change.
Oh, no, I would say it's moving in the wrong direction, because I don't think it is the single biggest issue. So...
Do you think it's an important issue?
I think it's an important issue to be tackled. I think mostly it's an important issue to be tackled in terms of moving to renewables and moving towards a more sustainable future. Absolutely, I have absolutely signed up to that.
Julia, how specifically can we move towards a more renewable future while expanding airports, for instance? Or how specifically can we move towards a renewable future?
Because technology...
While you're championing fracking.
Oh, absolutely. Fracking is incredibly clean energy. Since we are unable to, at the current time and for the foreseeable future, rely entirely on renewable energy forms because we haven't got the technology that's reliable enough, fracking is a very, very clean version of fossil fuels. It's the cleanest available, other than moving to nuclear. But your organisation is opposed to fracking, it's opposed to nuclear, you're opposed to everything. No, but the big concern is we are developing technology all the time that is cleaner aeroplanes, cleaner cars. This is all going to happen anyway. The key thing is everything that Extinction Rebellion is talking about is based on the idea that we are facing imminent destruction and catastrophe. We've got people talking about an Extinction Rebellion protest yesterday on air, talking about how we have only two more generations of human civilization left. This is abject nonsense, and none of it is backed up by the science. None of it is backed up by the IPCC reports at all. And yet you're making these claims that we're in a catastrophe situation, an existential battle. We're simply not. There's no science that suggests that whatsoever.
Why do you have a problem? I'm going to come back to that. You asked me about
quite a big point.
All at once, and yeah, exactly. So why do you have a problem, first of all, with it demands, not aims? I don't think that's particularly radical extremist. I think that's just
demands. You have no right to demand anything from a democratically elected government. You can seek to persuade people.
Well, this is the thing. So we have a.
You're not persuading people. You're bullying people.
I don't think we're bullying people at all. I'm a very mild-mannered person. I think most Extinction Rebellion activists, the idea that bullying...
But apart from the fact that you're stopping people getting flights and getting buses across bridges and going about their lawful business, that's bullying.
Well, you could argue, actually, that we want to have a conversation with government and we have an unfair voting system. We're not being heard by democracy.
No, under the PR system, the European elections, 1.8 million votes went to the Green Party. That's a vote where it's not first past the post. But tackle the issue.
Well, you're making my point for me there, Julia. You're doing it brilliantly. If we had a proportional representation system at general elections...
You'd still only have less than 12% of the vote. But you still wouldn't be in government because you've not persuaded people. You're trying to bully people rather than persuade people of your arguments. Because the actual facts don't back up your arguments.
You're just shouting at me now. This is a bit bullying. This is what I meant by shouting. You're doing it right now. We're not having a conversation.
Am I shouting? No, I'm not shouting. No.
I think it's quite loud. We've not had a fair voting system for generations, certainly in our lifetimes. That means in that context, people think that the Green Party is a wasted vote. I think at European elections, we're now proving under a proportional representation system, you can have Green representation. People enjoy that Green representation.
And you got 12. The Green Party got 12%, but that's not a majority. It says that is most people didn't vote for the Green Party. Come on to the argument that I've made that I think this is bullying rather than trying to persuade people. And the reason is because you don't have the facts, the science, the IPCC reports backing up what you want.
We're a non-violent, peaceful protest. I think anyone listening to this, if they're going to be reasonable, knows that that's not bullying. There is no coercion in it. This is about people coming together, and everyone is welcome. Any of your listeners are welcome to go to rebellion.earth, the website, and take part in a vote that's happening right now in Trafalgar Square, which is about where is the next action going to be today? Is it going to be to block Waterloo Bridge? Is it going to be aimed at government departments? Or is it going to be aimed at the city? And then those votes are going to happen. Then people are going to have a discussion about where are we with our demands? What are the things we want to be making? And then if we can get government representation to come down, we'll have an open discussion with them and make negotiations. That's not bullying.
Can I give you my vote? You give me a proxy. My proxy vote is that you actually lobby governments and you stand for election.
I'm definitely doing that.
But that's what you do.
My boyfriend's like, are you ever not going to be running for election?
Well, that's brilliant. You should do that. And absolutely, I want people to have a chance to vote for your policies and things. But I just don't think, because you haven't done that yet, and because you haven't put those issues to the British people, I'm not sure you should be in a situation where you're effectively bullying people.
Can I ask you a question? Will you join me in lobbying for proportional representation?
No, I believe in the first past the post system. But I've always been very open about that, because that's how I think you get strong and stable government. But if your policies genuinely did have proper support, then they would already been taken on board. And indeed, the Labour Party 2030 target and the Tory Party 2050 target have already taken on board, and yet you're still on the streets causing disruption to other people. We're going to have to leave it there, Zack Polanski. Lovely to speak to you. Genuinely, always happy to have a debate with someone. I don't feel the need to agree with people. You can still have a civilised debate. Extinction Rebellion member there, if you want to go and give them your tuppence worth in a peaceful way while they carry out their illegal but nevertheless peaceful protest, do feel free to do so. Maybe you could take part in that vote.